Hello everyone, welcome to this video discussion on the history of the English language. This time, my topic is before Old English period. Before we proceed to my discussion of what happened during the Old English period, it's good that we strengthen first our foundations of what happened before Old English. Through this, we can genuinely understand the evolution of the modern English language. Let's talk about the origins of the language. Now, scholars are very uncertain when humans first started using language and how it spread. Although there have been a number of related literature which stipulates about the origin of the English language, there have been also a number of theories which speculate how the English language originated. Up to this time, scholars are still uncertain when was exactly the time that humans first started using language and how did this original language spread throughout the globe. Now, there are various theories, archaeological evidence, genetic findings, and linguistic reconstruction also. Now, these point out to the origin of the English language. But in our case nowadays, I believe that most people would say that language originated based on the theories presented in several textbooks that we have in the history of English language. Now let's focus more on archaeological claims and genetic findings. Humans and chimps split off from a common ancestor probably 7 million years ago. Homo erectus originated 2 million years ago, and early Homo sapiens were argued based on DNA and fossil to have split off 500,000 years ago. Language is assumed to have appeared between 150,000 and 80,000 BP. Now, this one is still an assumption even up to date. Genetic and linguistic similarity need not go hand in hand. Now, we need to remember that whatever genetic findings there could be, they do not necessarily go hand in hand with linguistic similarity. Genetic and linguistic reconstructions also indicate that certain people and languages are more closely related since they separate at later points. Now, as what I discussed in the previous video discussions, there have been external factors which really affected the evolution of the English language. And one of these is geographical in nature. That is when certain cultures went to a certain place and definitely impacted or affected the use of the language and its spread as well. Now, the debate about the origin of language has always been full of speculation. That is why we have a lot of theories about the origin of the language. And yet, no one has ever proven how language originated and how it became widespread across the globe. All we know is that there are earliest forms of writings. So this time I'm going to present to you some types of writing which were used before. First in the list is logographic. This is a system where one word is expressed in one symbol. That means symbols were greatly used to represent or to signify one word. For example, if you can see here, this symbol represents a face. This symbol represents a basket. This one here signifies house, and this one here symbolizes sun or day. Logographic have been very famous, most especially for cave people. Okay, those who inscribed their writing systems on stones or on rocks. You also have the syllabic type of writing. Syllabic is wherein the symbol represents the pronunciation of a syllable. That means whatever symbol is present in the writing system, each symbol is representative of a specific pronunciation. And then we also have phonetic, or commonly known as alphabetic, where one symbol represents one sound. And this is what we have been using in the modern English language. This system is very common in African, Semitic, and Indo-European languages. And we know that the English language is under the Indo-European language family tree. Therefore, we can say that Swahili, Arabic, and Russian all use phonetic writing system. In principle, modern English is phonetic, but in practice, that is not the case. Because if you notice, even if we could say that the way we pronounce words in the English language is highly phonetic in nature, we could notice that one sound or one letter rather, or one spelling for a word may have different or may have variations in terms of pronunciation. So that is why it's not the case at all times. We also have this one wherein some languages use a combination of writing systems. For example, Egyptians, they use three systems while Japanese use four, each conveying different kinds of information. And the modern English language that we use is also starting to include some syllabic symbols in informal writing. For example, this one, the computer language that we use, or the common shortcuts that we use in sending text messages or mobile messages. Instead of spelling out see you later, our modern generation now is fond of using symbols. Okay, so instead of writing see you later, we have here initials, see you later. And 8 here is used as a symbol to represent the sound 8. Okay, and then we also have here wait for the image to download. So instead of using the exact word for these sounds, they just use representations, symbols that could represent the sound being meant in the sentence. Okay. Next one is that ancient writings allow us to understand long-term linguistic change. If we always go back to ancient writings, then definitely it will be easier for us to understand how the English language evolved rather through times. Through this, we will have not only a better or deeper understanding of ancient writings, but also of the evolution of the process that English language undertook as to how it became the language that we are using now. So, since we are going to talk about changes, let's talk about Indo-European to Germanic sound changes. Now, we have this term called cognates, words with a common ancestor. That is what cognates mean. Cognates are sometimes hard to recognize because their sounds or meanings have shifted in one language but not in another. Now, to find linguistic relations among these cognates, we have pronouns, numerals, and kinship terms, which are usually taken since they're supposed to have changed the list. Why? Because these words, pronouns, numerals, and kinship terms are the words primarily used in any language. So, for example, if you notice here, we have different languages here, okay, labeled as language A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. Now, these are European and Middle Eastern languages taken from Rulen in 1994. Now, if you notice here, for example, for the word to, there are many ways on how they write the word to, okay, or how they say the word to here. Same goes with number 3. And then here, for the word me, if you notice, there is this example, for example, language A, wherein in order for the word me to take effect in the sentence, a word has to be inflected with this one, me, okay? Or could be inflected with this one, okay? Same goes with the pronoun you, where it can just be an inflection to a word so that the word you can take effect in a sentence. Same goes with the rest of the languages that are present here. Okay, now let's unravel what these languages are. So we have here, first language is Arabic, we have Hebrew, Sanskrit, we have Avestan of Indo-Iranian or Indo-Iranian language family. And then we have Greek, Latin, Gothic, Celtic, and Turkish. So if you can see here, there are variations with this one. And mind you, the words used before have also evolved with the modern versions of these languages as to now. Okay, so if we are to focus more on the sound changes, we could say that before, for early Indo-European languages, these were the consonants. However, this later on evolved because of the first consonant shift. Okay, correspondences between languages. This is according to Green's law. So for example, in the early Indo-European language, if the sound p, okay, was pronounced this way, in the Germanic language, it's pronounced as f. Same goes with the rest of the consonants here. So if you notice here, t, k, b, d, g, and then this sounds paired with the H sound. And then because of the first consonant shift, they became these sounds in the Germanic language. Apart from the changes when it comes to phonology or sounds, it's also good to discuss about Indo-European to Germanic changes when it comes to morphology or word formations and syntax or sentence structures. Now, one good example for this is the language Sanskrit. Okay? Now, in this language, nouns have 8 different cases. If we go to other languages, there are other languages which do not completely have these 8 different cases. But Sanskrit does have these 8 different cases. And what are these 8 different cases? So we have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, instrumental, locative, ablative, and vocative. Okay? So to discuss each one of this, when we talk about genitive, it's when a noun functions or shows ownership, okay, possession. But if it is in the dative case, that means a noun functions as the indirect object of the sentence. When you say accusative, the noun functions as the direct object. If it's in the instrumental case, the noun functions as an instrument by which action is achieved. If it is locative, it means it indicates location. Now, in the modern English, we refer to it as the prepositions. Okay, so prepositions are in the locative position in the modern English. But before, there were nouns which already indicate location. And then we have ablative, wherein motion, this shows motion away from something. And then the vocative case, wherein a noun functions as an identification of a person being addressed. Take a look at this example. There are different cases for the Sanskrit stem, this one, okay, for the word God, which is translated, for the word Deva, which is translated to God. So for here, we can see the singular version, and then we have here the plural version. If it is in a nominative case, meaning it's just the simple subject of a sentence, this one, Deva, is just inflected with S to make it singular. But once you make it plural, you add a stem A, and then you add another S. Okay? If it is an accusative case, again, an accusative case is when a noun functions as a direct object of a sentence. So here, the word deva is inflected with M. Okay? Whereas if it is plural, the word deva is inflected with an. Same goes with the rest of the cases here. If you carefully notice, the rest of the cases here heavily rely on the inflections. So that is how inflections could really change the meaning of the word. Same also goes with the syntactic structures. In the Old English or before Old English period, syntactic structures have come to linguistic understanding very importantly. And that is why it's very important that we really understand these structures and these word formations so that we could also appreciate the word formation, the different processes undertaken before they have finally become the modern English words that we use at present. Okay, so this is just the highlight of what happened before the Old English, because the really core of our discussion is more on the Old English period. So the Old English period discussion will introduce you to the Old English language we used before, which later on became the modern English that we are using now. So if you have questions about this discussion, you may post them in the open forum or you may comment on this video. Thank you very much for listening.